I feel like I'm meeting my girlfriend's parents.
Yeah.
I'm married.
Let's bring you up to speed. Hasbro, or more specifically Avalon Hill, is bringing Heroscape back. What's Heroscape? Well, it's this beloved war game that we all thought was a board game that came out 18 years ago, and it died 12 years ago. But the revival hasn't been without its controversies. Everything from whether or not the minis will be painted to the design of the new figures has fractured the Heroscape community into a million pieces. But nothing has been more controversial than the announcement released on October 1st. See, at PulseCon, Avalon Hill had their panel where they went over their offering, and they announced to the world that the Heroscape revival would be funded by the HASLAB crowdsourcing platform, which everybody saw coming, except for me. The most controversial aspect of this crowdfunding? Only one tier at $250, and they need 8,000 backers. And if they don't get 8,000 backers, it doesn't fund Heroscape is dead forever. Now I figure I could throw my hat into the discussion with all sorts of what ifs and unfounded opinions, or I could just go straight to the source and ask them. So I did. I hit up my new best friend Chris Nadeau, who's the lead designer over at Avalon Hill, and we had a chat. And in that chat I asked him and head of marketing Patrick O'Rourke, 8,000 units at $250 a pop. That's a steep ask. How do you plan on meeting that goal? And here's what they said.
We'll have to talk about some of this at a high level, just because of the nature of
course,
of what we're allowed to talk about. But it's a very expensive game to make, and even more so, it's a very expensive game to start making. Mm-hmm. I think that's ultimately one of the reasons it didn't work the first time around, is because it was very difficult to recoup initial investment. And so, if we believe that there's a community here and people who want to play this game, that's where we need to be able to cover those costs to kick it off, because it's not going to be, look, I love Heroscape, but it's not, at least in the near term, not going to be the biggest game in Avalon Hills or even Hasbro's portfolio, right? So we've got to bring this out, we've got to be able to cover those very high startup costs. As far as a plan is concerned, there's a lot in the works, and some of it I wish would have came out sooner, but there's a lot in the works, and we're running as fast as we can on this side. There's videos being produced. We shot a video just a little bit ago. I don't know what I want to say about that, but there's stuff, right? And I hope it works. I tell you what, and you mentioned it earlier, we're up every night doing the best we can to move this thing through, and it's not done. We're not sitting down and hang out in the corner going like, well, I guess this thing's over. Mm-hmm. We've got a long time. At the time of this, we got 33 days. Yeah, it's 33 days to work our magic and be determined and drive as hard as we can.
Yeah, Patrick's task last night was to actually task out a bunch of actionable deliverables that the design development team could support.
They got pretty frustrated.
The list that he came in here this morning at 9 a.m. is 23 bullet points long that I'm looking at right now. And so it's all hands on. It's, just attack, break down these things, get this stuff out. Things like the fan poll was just one bullet point, right? Mm-hmm. So just like the fan said, I wanted to see all the product laid out, and I wanted to know exactly what I got from a value perspective. That's where that image came from, yesterday. Like we're just chipping away and getting that stuff out and doing all those things that are got to create some lift. And, Patrick's spot on in terms of the insights here. It is a very expensive game to produce, and without giving any exact numbers, just the tooling for the HasLab is a massive chunk of that $2 million that you're estimating there. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking 20 or 30% of that. I'm talking it's a massive chunk. Mm-hmm. Those are hundreds of molds to be able to do all of this. So these costs come with a fairly hefty price tag, plus all the R&D to generate all new characters, all new sculpts, all new army cards. Like that's a pretty hefty investment. And so once you start chipping away at all of that, and then you figure out just the cost of producing these to get them to the backers, what number are you actually coming up with at the end of that? Mm-hmm. Might actually, I think, shock the people who think that something like this is a cash grab.
Yeah. And The philosophy of HasLab is different than the philosophy of Kickstarter. So there's that piece of it as well, right? Like if you look at a lot of Kickstarters, they claim that their funding goal is whatever their funding goal is, and then they blow that out of the water. But you and I both know, Austin, that like as someone who backs Kickstarters, at least myself, it's like, yeah, but I've seen these things hit goal and they cancel it anyway because their real goal was something much higher. But for us, it's, you know, we have stretch goals. We'd love to go beyond it, but that's the real deal thing, right? That's what we've got to hit. That's what we are able to get approved within the company, and it does logically make sense. If I could break it all down for you, you would see. And so it's like, that's what we're chasing. And to me, it's almost more honest than setting an artificially low number that, yeah, maybe we would have blown away in 24 hours, but we would have, you know, not been able to actually support the game in the way it needs to be supported, because we do have plans for it. If it works, if we can rally the people around it when it works, then there's a lot we can do, because we've paid the factory to get started. Like, that's the hardest part, is like, start making it, and that's super expensive, and then now you're making it, so let's make some more stuff, right? That's a lot easier to do, especially from a cost and resources standpoint. So that's what's getting us over that first speed bump, really.
Yeah, and what separates us too is, you know, to Patrick, your point of like Kickstarters, they come with a little bit of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
Like, while people will say, well, how come you didn't just make this a Kickstarter? How come you didn't, you know, go after that fan base? You know, the HasLab name comes with that assurance, right? If this backs, you get it, and it's Hasbro backed, and you know that thing's showing up in the mail. You're not going to get, you know, notice 2 months down the line that, hey, sorry, I'm going to move out the delivery of this thing another year. It's getting made. And you know exactly who to call on customer service if it, you know, you're not getting your answers, and that, you know, that should mean something to the community.
There's no tiered level of backing. That's been the one thing that, like, when people complain about that, I'm like, they kind of have a point. So what was the reasoning behind having one backer level?
Well, I'm trying to think of a tight answer to it that I can summarize the rationale, but really it comes down to, that's the best value we felt we could deliver. Because, you know, because of the way in which the financials break down, we can put a lot of value in the box once it hit $250. We could use, like, I don't think anybody, or I've seen very few people question, hey, this is a lot of stuff for $250. Like, there's a lot in this box. The problem is $250 is a lot of money to pay, and I understand that and respect that completely. But as far as a value to what you get perspective, $250 was really the sweet spot where we felt like we could give the best deal to the consumer. Once you start getting lower than that, it just got a little more like, I don't want anyone to feel like they're not getting enough.
Are they getting something they're going to prize? Does it feel like a treasure? Does it feel like I can actually bring my friends into this game system and be proud of that? And the finances to something like this is super, super complex. So even to the point of how the financials kind of break down, even if you halved the price to $125, that's not half the product. It's more like a third the product, right? That's what happens as you scale, right? So as you start to create a really competitive price point, what you might not have is a game. And you might feel like the starter set doesn't feel impressive to you. This isn't something when you break it open a year from now, you're going to be excited about. And so it's a lot of that back and forth on our team of like scaling up and down that offering for weeks and months. And we still have those conversations of what is the right comparison of a price point to a value. What are people going to feel good about at the end of the day when they have it? And we get that that kind of knocks a certain demographic who might not have $250 in their checking account handy to be able to participate. We understand, and you know, we've had a lot of discussions about that. We have a lot of plans about that. But you know, first and foremost, what we have to do is we have to generate the money to make this line a possibility. And that's what the HasLab system is designed to do. And so it is a community funded, crowd funded relaunch of Heroscape. And that comes with some of these nuances of, it doesn't feel like the kind of thing I would find in a Walmart or a Toys R Us. And
but it's not. It's not by design, right? But again, those are also, if you think in terms of mass-produced stuff, 8,000 units is very, very few.
Oh, totally. 100%.
It's tiny, so it's a
you pay a premium. You pay a premium with the factory when the factory is telling you, well, if you're only going to run 8,000 units, you're going to pay more per unit than if you were producing 200,000 units. And so all of this gets factored in. It's the finances is super complex to this kind of stuff. It's not as simple as a conversation on Discord or the varying perspectives and opinions of the community on Facebook. It's hard. It's a big deal. Yeah, and I won't repeat the fact that I'm a subscriber to the channel and that I watch all the videos.